Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in for this interview with Sean and Deana Kiner of Kiner Music. Unfortunately, we couldn't get Kevin Kiner on today, but we talked about many different things from their work on Ahsoka to Tales of the Underworld, which just released last month, and some of their non-Star Wars stuff as well, including Peacemaker. We even talked about Andor and some other inspirations for them, answered some of your questions. But yeah, this is the first time I've done an interview quite like this in an actual studio, and I'm hoping this starts something new for me where I do these pretty regularly with other people who have worked on Star Wars in various capacity, authors, people behind the scenes, maybe some voice actors, and whatnot. But thank you for watching and enjoy. It's been already about 2 years since I last talked with y'all.
No kidding.
Yeah, that first it
Really?
was right before Ahsoka came out.
Wow.
So we didn't. I remember we talked a little bit about Ahsoka, but we weren't able to talk too much about it. So I kind of like I know we had like planned about it, and then obviously I had a lot going on last year. Um, so we're doing it now. Um, but yeah, tell us about kind of. I mean, we talked about like working on it a little bit, but like once it came out, was that pretty surreal a little bit with everything going on? Just like oh, we've done all these live or animated projects, but now there's something like this massive scale of a live action show, and obviously a huge character with Ahsoka.
Yeah, I don't know that we worked. Okay, so we worked the hardest we've ever worked on something on Ahsoka. And not because it was difficult and not because like any kind of like technical thing or like because anything was new. We were just so excited to work on it. We had like all of this pent up energy because we had been waiting for a long time to get started on it. And then we started working on it really early. It was we hadn't really worked on any cuts that were that early for most of our other shows. Most of the time that we're working on like the Bad Batch or on Mall now, we get pretty close to like the final cut of picture. And with Ahsoka, we were on really early, a lot of pre-visual stuff, and we it was just a massive amount. And we are also just like had that crazy energy going into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when we got the news that we were going to be on it, I stayed up really late that night just channeling nervous energy into trying to like do some sketches for like it's like oh well what if they have a scene like this, maybe we could do something like this, or like here's a leitmotif for like a potential villain, what do you think? And
Mm-hmm.
of course most like 95% of it ended up on the cutting room floor. But I would say that was actually a good thing because a lot of the ideas that we had, especially as we started getting previous stuff, we started learning what was not working pretty quickly the second we had picture. And we had done so much work doing stuff that, theoretically on paper could be good. Maybe it was like a little high concept idea that we had. Very quickly it was like, oh, this isn't working. And we had already done so much work figuring out what wasn't working that it was pretty easy to find what would work.
Mm-hmm. Did you? I remember that premiere episode and that first with Balin and Shin, that hallway. I mean, that just being like electrifying. Was that like when were you kind was? I kind of got the feeling that those were maybe two characters you guys were pretty excited to work with.
Oh yeah, I mean Balin has so much of presence, right? Um, we wanted to make sure that they had a distinctive sound, right? So that people knew that it was like a different flavor of antagonist, right? Because they weren't exactly villainous,
Mm-hmm.
right? and they have a very understandable kind of ethos and way of viewing the galaxy. And so that's, I think, ended up speaking through, coming through in how we did the theme, right? Using an instrument in the piano that isn't something that we have used very overtly. Piano doesn't show up too much in Star Wars. It actually pedals under everything in Duel of the Fates, believe it or not. But it's something that if it's missing, you feel it. But when it's in there, you don't really pick up on it. But that's the only. I'm sure there's other times, right? But that's the first that comes to my mind. So we decided to put the piano front and center, and we used a Rachmaninoff kind of voicing, to kind of sketch out his melody.
Yeah, was there? I remember asking about the new Thrawn theme like before it came out, because that was one I was really looking forward to. How did you guys approach kind of evolving his theme from animation to live action? Were you guys kind of seeing like, okay, what more can we do with this, or what was the process there?
Oh, Deana, you can take that.
I can speak to that. It was definitely a lot of experimentation, and we probably ended up bouncing more ideas off of Dave Filoni than we had with a lot of the other things. Like with Ahsoka's theme, we had kind of practiced developing it in a new way with Tales, because we got to experiment a lot with the Tales of the Jedi, and we found like this like really cool groove and this kind of new like Ronin samurai aesthetic or sonic aesthetic for her through that. But then when it came to Thrawn, we hadn't really practiced like experimenting and expanding, or even knowing where like his character was going to be at this point in the show. And like we initially went very like classic, like very Rebels with it. We went pretty straightforward, where we were just like very fixated on his theme, especially like when he's very in his was the episode 6, maybe episode 7, I think it was 6, where he first shows up. We just really focused on his theme, and we realized, like, especially after discussing with Dave, that's not quite right. It's like we need to show his presence more, and we need to focus more on like just the suffocating nature of like the Empire and Thrawn as like this presence. So it weirdly ended up being taking a lot of things away, paring it way down and focusing way more on just like that specific like doom and suffocation that he...
Yeah.
It felt like it was when we played it like we had in Rebels. It felt like it was distracting, like it was not adding to the scene, but rather taking focus. It was almost like the focus of the scene was on the music, which Star Wars can do frequently. But in that moment, it was really wrong. The piece of music was okay. It actually made it onto the soundtrack, just because we're like, oh, let's record this because we had fun putting it together anyways. And it was never used in the episode. But then eventually things started like, that was when his first, and it's such a great scene, by the way. When he first shows up, I thought it ended up being really elegant and super cool. Then we started to reintroduce like a new version of his ostinato, and his like melody from Rebels. By the end of it, when he's talking to Ahsoka about to go and fuck up the galaxy, then we're playing it. We were playing it more in full.
Yeah, I was reminded of Balin's intro, kind of with Thrawn's in some way, at least in the sense of like you have this dominant like introduction of these villains, and I feel like really aided by the score. I thought that was one thing that was just really like powerful and cinematic. But yeah, kind of along with that, we're in terms of collaborating with Dave. Was he much more particular about what he wanted with some of these things than he is in contrast to animation, or was it pretty par of the course, like similar process?
It felt really similar. It was different, right, Dina?
Yeah, it was definitely different.
It's more on the line.
Yeah, I think he had a lot more focused kind of direction. Like he knew exactly what he was trying to get out of the music in a moment.
Dramatically.
Exactly. Um, but he was really great about as he's always been about just letting us kind of do what we wanted
Right.
to, where he was just like he was like, I don't know, the temp's doing like this, but like, you know, go ham, try something different, try something crazy. And whenever we would do that, he was like, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Like especially with Sabine's entrance with the Igyaka with the rock song
Oh yeah.
speeding down the highway. Uh he had a pretty different vision for what he wanted that music to sound like. And we were just like, "Well, what if what if it was like this?"
Yeah, cause you.
Yeah, he had something in the temp that was very different. I'm not sure. Did he place that? Well, whatever the
I
case, it
don't
was.
remember who it
We
was.
what we ended up with was significantly different than the temp in instrumentation and like notation and stuff. But I would argue that it in spirit was very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause you got, was it, is it Sarah
Mhm.
from Illuminati Hotties
Yes.
for the vocals?
Hmm.
I thought it was just awesome. What was? How did you kind of approach her? Like, hey, what would you think of doing this?
I literally said, "Hey, this probably won't happen, but do you want to try?" Because it was so different. It was such a like radically different approach to um the temp, which was kind of like laid back, cool groove. Like it had this a similar like I don't care kind of attitude, like just kind of like easy riding, like motorcycle, wind in your hair kind of thing. And I wanted to inject a lot more attitude
Mm.
into into the song, and that's kind of why I reached out to Sarah. And it was really funny because uh w- she had to learn my made up language that
That's what.
I just
Yeah, I
kind of
was
like
really curious about that.
it was essentially scatting. It's like scatting through the lens of Star Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of have that filter and like it's just like what's kind of a Star Warsy like almost Huttese but maybe a little bit of other spices. Like I know I pulled a lot from like Tagalog and uh and when I sent it over to Sarah, she was like, "Oh my God, I'm like actually like all of my like Hebrew roots are kind of flowing pouring into this like all like my childhood memories of like having to read Hebrew
Yeah,
like kind of being channeled into it." So that was really fun.
that is really cool. That's actually the after that came out that introduced me to her music. I'm a big fan of Illuminati
Oh,
Hotties now. So yeah,
fantastic.
great musician.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
okay, let's see. I
Oh,
had,
here, let me just circle back though to
yeah.
talking about whether Dave was
Oh
different or
yeah,
not on
of
it.
course.
I will say that the best thing about Dave is that he's very rarely prescriptive in his notes about what needs to be fixed. He doesn't say like, "Oh, take the strings out," right? Or, "Oh, use this kind of thing." He's always keeping the focus on drama and the story and the characters. And that's a way better. A lot of times we'll get clients who apologize for not having technical language or the ability to, speak music technical jargon. And we're always like, no, please don't. It's worse if you
Mm,
do. Just trust us to know to be able to distill what you're saying. We know how to speak dramatic language. You know what I mean? So stay in that realm. And so that was what was great about working with Dave. He was just like, oh no, we just need to emphasize this character beat better, or in this way, or how about? Do you
Or like
understand like
yeah,
the
reading
difference?
like the like emotional state of the character that
totally.
he wants to come through. That was like always a very important thing where he's like, this is actually where Sabine's at this moment where like we don't like there's no dialogue, we don't hear her thoughts, and so we have to help tell that story. And there was like a few times where he had to be give us that insight of just being like, okay, this is what she's thinking, this is what she's going through right now, and I need you to like help explain that musically.
Yeah. And you guys have, worked with um uh Ahsoka as a character for years now. And like obviously Ludwig worked with that character in The Mandalorian, kind of going off of what, Kevin and you guys have done and making it his own thing. And now you kind of have that. So are you kind of like playing off of each other now with the character a little bit? Or what was the process kind of as you've evolved with that character?
I mean, it definitely started with Tales because we weren't sure if we were going to get live action Ahsoka, and we knew that it was in the works or in pre-production. And so we kind of treated Tales like our pitch for like, hey, to show Dave is like, hey, we can take the character sound and put it in a place that you need. We can evolve the sound to mature it along with the character, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally. Um, yeah, and then with just came out less than a month ago, Tales of the Underworld. You got to extensively work on Bane and Ventress, which I thought was interesting because they both had their you know kind of one episode debuts in the Bad Batch, or not debuts, but like reintroductions. And there's Bane's like Western motif is one of my favorites that you guys have done. But was it kind of were you guys pretty excited to work with what you had done in Bad Batch and kind of expand that a little bit with Underworld? Is that what you're kind of thinking?
Yeah, definitely. Like, we love playing with that instrumentation. I mean, we we've been doing like I've been messing around with that since I helped on like Hell on Wheels back in like 2015, 2016 or so. And we love messing around with like the Western kind of aesthetic. And also the Western is really inherent to Star Wars. It's just like a part of the Star Wars DNA. Um, and so it's really cool to get to like play with that. And with like all of the Tales stuff, it really is just kind of like nice of Dave to just give us this playground of like here's some characters and this is the genre, let's try something. And it's always really cool like for the early stuff in Cad Bane's story, it was very like you can hear it in like the Street Rats kind of um piece that we have up on the album where it's a lot more like kind of West Side Story
Mm.
through like the cityscape and like the way that they are interacting with the city and existing themselves and to like develop that into like this hybrid noir western kind of thing. Because it's like it's early Bane, so it's like it's he's in a different place than he is like when he's in Bad Batch or when he's in Clone Wars. And same kind of thing with Ventress, who she's just like riding into the desert on a horseback essentially,
Mm-hmm.
and so like that is always there, and we're always trying to figure out a way to balance that, like have it still be kind of Star Wars, but also like just put like the little spices of different instrumentation in for the Western aspect.
Yeah, and using Kevin's Cad Bane theme towards the end of Cad Bane's arc, uh, you know, connecting young Bane to like who he ends up being. That was pretty cool to do. I Whenever we're using the themes that like Kevin developed,
Mm.
way back at the beginning of Clone Wars, it always feels like a special thing.
Yeah. How is that? I remember we talked a little bit about it last time, but as you guys have started to work more with your father on the music, is that evolved? Is it kind of the same as it when it started, or is it kind of shifted as you guys have gotten more experience?
Definitely shifted since the beginning because I still feel like I was doing very strange things in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning. And maybe not necessarily in a bad way, but yeah, there was a lot to learn. There's so much to this career that like you will not know off the bat. And the first few years, one of the things that Kevin tells like every assistant that comes through, and I don't totally agree with, but I kind of understand, is that like they should be paying him because the amount of things that he teaches them in that first year, that like this is how to work
Mm.
on a show. This is how to work on a movie. It's just like there's so much stuff, like even being educated, like I went to Berklee College of Music, and even being educated in music, as soon as like I worked in composing for like 3 months, I had probably learned more. Just because it's like it's things are so specific and you're doing it so much more concentrated instead of like, learning the math of music at the same time.
Right. How about for you, Sean?
It's shifted. It's gotten a lot more efficient, I think, and just like better. All the through friction, things are worn smooth. And
Mm.
I don't know, things are in a great place, and they have been for a long time. Um, Early on, learning stuff and having a lot of ambition and being intimidated by how much there is to learn. Very little of that has changed. Things still feel intimidating. There still feels like there's even more to learn now, honestly,
Mm.
than I realized at the beginning. Um, but it's a nice kind of feeling, and there's a lot of gratification when you have something finally on the page and you get to send it to your Kevin and Deana are my first audience. I'm always sending my cues out basically right after I finish them to get some feedback or reactions, um, and then it'll go to the client will go to Dave or Brad and Athena or whoever else.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have direct feedback. Instead of having to wait for the fans. It's always wonderful to see fan reactions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you don't get it until like months later. I don't even know when things are dropping. Underworld like surprised me, and I was like,
Right.
"Oh, right, that was." Hey, we did that.
Yeah. Is for so you guys are probably in the midst of working on Mall. I don't want to bring up something you can't talk about or anything, but
A little bit.
yeah, working on that a little bit. Yeah, because you with the animation, I'm guessing you guys get like just way in advance, like a little bit more, or is it still in comparison to live action, or is it maybe the same?
Uh, I
No,
think so. I mean, at least the cadence that we've kind of experienced has been like we will maybe be finished with animated series 4 months before it
Okay.
releases. Some of that is, just like release schedule, like them trying to figure out like, like when a Marvel thing comes out, when a Star Wars things comes
Right.
out and stuff. Um, but yeah, sometimes like with some of our other like live action shows, there will be shows that come out 2 weeks after we turn it in, uh,
Wow.
comparatively. Um, and it honestly it really bounces back and forth from like whether it's a streaming thing, whether it's a uh network thing, or like which streaming network it's coming out on. I remember
Mm-hmm.
when we worked on an HBO thing a few years ago, and they split the season in half and then waited 6 months to release the second half of
Oh
it.
my goodness. Okay. Yeah.
It's just it can be all over the place. It's yeah, it's interesting.
So when they split it in half, is it still that second half is still finished, or are you?
Yeah,
Okay.
We thought it was gonna get canned. We thought it
Wow.
was gonna go the way of Batgirl.
yeah,
Oh
there's just like a lot of changing of hands and
yeah.
chaos
Yeah.
during that moment.
Mm-hmm. But and then what is one of your upcoming Peacemaker season 2. When is that? What's the release on that?
I believe that's August 23rd.
Oh, okay. So are you guys? Is that one that's finished for y'all, or are you
We are just about to finish it.
just about to finish
Yeah,
it?
almost.
Okay.
It's real good. I think people are really gonna like it.
Yeah. Has that? Have you guys? How? I think I talked about it a little last time, but with James Gunn on that one has been a pretty similar process to season 1.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful show to work on. Everyone's just kind of having fun. Everyone's pretty much on the same page, and honestly, like I think James Gunn uses Peacemaker as a way to relax, where he still
Yeah.
wants to be doing something,
Yeah.
but he is just like really excited about the character, really excited about everyone that he's working with. He's like incredibly respectful and just like gets it's so funny. We were mixing it and he was like bouncing in his seat when he was hearing one of our cues and he just like looked back and he was just like pointing. It's like
That's
it was
awesome.
great. It's an amazing show to work on.
Yeah. It just seems like a lot of fun for literally everyone involved. Okay. Yeah, and then with just curious what you guys, I know Dina, we've talked a little bit about Andor, but how is, what did you guys think of that just as a show first?
Mhm. Love it. I love it. I love Andor so much.
My favorite thing ever,
Makes me
Yeah,
want to go learn history.
right.
honestly.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way with it. Were you guys, obviously Nicholas Britell season 1, I think that's some of the just best
It's
composition work.
fantastic.
Yeah, and
It's
like
super cool.
all of Star Wars, and then even season 2 with, I know he had to leave for most of it. Um, but were you guys kind of inspired by anything in those seasons musically of just kind of integrating in that? Work?
Honestly, he has to take such a different approach.
Right.
Like the same way that like Tony Gilroy is already writing so differently.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, they're trying to accomplish something very different.
Right.
And it winds up being the same thing because like Sean was talking about, we're just here to serve story. We're here to focus on like the what the drama is in
Yeah.
our show.
Totally.
Um, like we'll hear like a synthesizer and be like, "Oh, that's really cool," but like,
Right. Right.
like a lot of the times it's like it's the tone won't be appropriate to apply, um, to what we're doing.
Yeah. No,
I
one
think
hundred
that
percent.
was it. I think it was an interview with George Lucas, and he was talking about how in the movies, the music tells a story,
Mm.
right? And in Andor, the music is not telling the story. It's just a very different aesthetic. We pursue more of like what's called like oh my god, I've forgotten the word. Not didactic. This, we, the music is telling the story often in ours. Gosh, why I can't remember the word.
He knows the definition, not the
Yep,
word.
yep.
I'll come. I know the execution. I forget the.
We know how to do it. We don't know how to put a word on it.
The
Yeah,
most
I'd be a
important part.
teacher if I knew words. Um. Well, it'll come to me. Anyways, the job just is different. The
Yeah.
aesthetic and dramatic purpose and role of the music is different in the shows that we work on versus Andor.
I know David mentioned, yeah, the Tales shorts are more like poems and like visual storytelling. And kind of through that, I feel like the music is much more prominently telling the story along with the visuals. Is
I
it
remembered the word. It's expository score.
Okay, great.
So, um,
Which I
yeah,
guess that,
it does play more of a central role in that case, and I think that that's something that is very specific to Star Wars. Very little media is really doing that anymore, and so it feels important to preserve the art somewhat.
yeah,
And this by no means to like say that um that Andor's music isn't like helping tell the story
right,
or isn't like doing emotional or playing emotional moments and everything. It's just it has to exists so differently
Mm,
compared to the way that we tell this story. Um, it, I mean, it almost to me it feels the different. It's like the difference of like a World War I story compared to like Lord of the Rings. Like you have like
right,
similar kinds of like there's allegory, there is war happening
right,
and everything, but it's just they're telling the story just has to be told differently.
Right.
totally.
It's yeah. I am only speaking on a technical level in terms of like execution. And sorry, my composer brain took over. And was like, how to
No,
analyze it. Obviously, the score, the quality of the score for Andor speaks for itself.
oh, totally. Yeah, I
I
know what you're
think
saying. Yeah,
that goes without saying that
yeah,
it is
totally.
beautiful and emotive and moving, and just fills you up.
Yeah, even with just the dance sequence for the first wedding
Oh,
arc in season 2, like it's amazing to hear like a piece of dance music playing in a very sincere dance way, and just all of that context is feeding like with like the image and like what has all just happened to Mon Mothma in that moment, and like it makes every element ascend to a different like plane
right.
emotionally, where like if you just heard that piece by itself you probably wouldn't be able to tell that that's what the story was, right?
Right.
um but because it does it so like it does it visually, and like Genevieve's performance in it is so incredible. I think that was the last um thing that she filmed also. That was her last day on set,
Wow, I didn't
if
know
I'm not
that.
mistaken. uh
Wow.
like I can't imagine. Yeah, they posted uh on the Star Wars account, they posted like each person's last day. Cassian was the TIE fighter in the beginning.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, that's wild.
That was his last day.
Yeah, and I thought that scene, how it's, what was the first almost 10 minutes, no music at all, which I thought was almost eerie. I
It is,
remember,
Oh yeah. A lot.
but
especially for Star Wars. Like
yeah,
the music can do so much, and does do a lot in so
yeah,
much Star Wars, and to have it just be bare will kind of freak you out.
yeah. Uh, do you guys ever? Because yeah, the absence of music can be just as like important as the presence of it. So has there been instances when you guys have been working on something? It's like, actually, no, we need to maybe like refrain here from.
Less in animation, more in live action.
Okay,
In the original trilogy, there's actually a lot of silence.
yeah,
So they don't they pick their moments to emphasize, and it's really to get really big highs, if that
yeah,
makes
yeah.
any
I,
sense.
I would researching and or I was watching episode 3, and it blew my mind to watch that beginning sequence
Mm,
where a ton of it is silent, where they're like flying through like the entire battle over Coruscant, and like even a lot of the part where they're in the ship and they're just like barreling through all the battle droids and everything. There's a ton of like there's a ton of lack of music. It's crazy.
yeah,
It's like unbelievable.
yeah. That's something that's, yeah, stood out to me when I went to go rewatch it in the theaters. But I think even in a theater, it's like more apparent when there's like that lack, because
Sure.
it's much more bombastic when it is on, and then when it's not, you're like, oh, this is so quiet.
Yeah, and I think especially for a scene like that, it helps make it feel like a war.
Yeah,
I find that to be very effective is when there is like gunfire and explosions, and you need the tension of battle. Uh, so that's something that can be really effective is to not play it musically, because the audio and like all the, especially the sound design in Star Wars. Are you kidding me?
yeah,
That will really tell the story, and it can become really important when you're like, okay, we need to either play the significance of something that we're seeing or the significance of an emotional state of the characters, like why or like that is usually when we find we need to start playing the music.
Yeah, that's with even the Gorman massacre.
Exactly.
That's the first time I think I can think where there's like they're singing in
Hmm.
the show itself, and then there's the silencing of it, and then just the chaos. Where it's like you said, it makes it feel so grounded in reality, like a war.
Hmm.
And I was just like, it's been really like standing out to me in like different Star Wars projects of late of those like the absences. But that one especially with Andor, where it's just like there's this singing and like very like expression of freedom, and then it being snuffed out like that. This is
Hmm.
an excellent dramatic effect. Yeah,
Those guys are so talented.
yeah, that whole show is just it's insane. It's insane. But yeah, even with like the Neomos with Mon Mothma dancing, and then it cutting with the same track with Brasso being killed,
Right.
and like you just wouldn't think dramatically that would work, but it worked. It's just so it's like the chaos of it, and just like the total.
Excellent use of montage.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
just one of the best
The
sequences.
legal
Yeah,
montage,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah. But okay, I'm gonna pull up some questions that I got from people. Let's see what we have here. Okay, we're gonna start with my friend.
Also, what lightsaber do you have?
Oh,
It's so fun.
this is Plo Koon's.
Oh, amazing.
Ah,
Really good.
Yeah,
very cool.
I still need to get a blade for it.
I was
Um,
gonna say when you like picked it up and you started to point it at yourself a little bit, I was like, ah.
oh yeah. But yeah, no, my friend, you guys know Corey,
Mhm.
Corey Veda. Yeah, he got this for me.
Oh,
Oh, very
thanks.
cool.
This was a gift. Yeah, after my first cancer diagnosis actually. So that's a very special gift, but I thought it'd be a cool prop.
That is great. That's great.
Yeah. So, but all right. So my friend Jackson, he asked, like, how did your experience working with a full live orchestra on Ahsoka change how you worked on the animated projects you scored afterwards?
Oh, interesting.
Hmm, that's an interesting question because I mean, I suppose we're always learning things. You learn a little faster. We started like learning the proclivities of individual section leaders in the band that we were using for Ahsoka, and started writing for individual people. Like I've never done that before, where I've had such a consistent group of people that we can be like, oh, I know what Andrew Duckles can do, and I'm excited to see what he can do with this. Uh, and so, I mean, just by virtue of doing that, I think that we learned, we just picked up new toys for the toolbox that we end up trying out for live action stuff.
Okay. Yeah, totally. Um, is there any character you guys haven't composed that you would like to?
Well,
It's been a while since we did Plo Koon.
Oh,
That's just top
oh
of mind now.
yeah,
don't get me started.
Tales of the Jedi too. Come on,
I know, right? It's
we'll
right there.
pester, we'll
It's
pester
gotta
Derek.
happen. It's gotta happen at some point.
Have a Plo Koon arc.
Oh, I totally thought, honestly, that it would maybe happen. But if they were going to just focus on the Jedi with those, but I'm glad that they've expanded. But I kind of hope they tail back.
Yeah, more Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah, I would.
Hilariously,
Who would
I
be the
would
who would?
love to keep playing Omega. I really want to see where
Yes,
Omega goes. She's such a fun character. She's such a fun like Star Wars character. There's not a lot of people like her.
it's true. She feels so optimistic and hopeful.
Yeah,
It's really neat. Just special kind of special person.
she's
Who
one. Feels like
who
one
do you
of.
think would be if you sorry just to
Oh,
go
go ahead.
back? You have Plo Koon, right? You
Yeah.
have to have a second, right? Who's the foil going to be in another Tales of the Jedi?
Oh,
Because I mean, before you had a pretty clear like, oh, we got Dooku's fall and then Ahsoka's rise.
oh, who would be?
But like, I don't know. Be fun.
That's a good question.
We'll have to think about it. Sorry. Anyway.
I mean, you could. Well, if they did more Ahsoka ones, that would. But it would probably. Yeah, it would have to be a villain. But oh man, they could do.
Oh, honestly, probably like a Balin thing could work.
Yeah,
I'd love to see.
I know he's not animated, but I think you can animate a
they
real person.
probably knew each other. If he was, around during that time.
Yeah. Young Balin would be cool.
A young Balin. Even if they did, well, they've already done some Qui-Gon, but Qui-Gon with Balin would probably make the most.
Totally.
And we don't get to do cool Plo Koon music.
Yeah, but then because I know Dave. I remember talking how with the Ahsoka ones, he tossed around having the first short be actually a Plo Koon finding Ahsoka, but decided to go back earlier, which I get it, but I was a little miffed about that.
That can be the end of his arc. Is him like in the distance. There's the Ahsoka's village at night, and he hears the cry of a baby.
Yeah, they could. Oh man,
cut to credits.
Come on. What? Oh yeah, what was the inspiration for the use of the organ for Thrawn's theme? And very baroque. What they said.
That was definitely Dave Filoni. That was 100% his idea.
Okay.
Back in Rebels, he's like, what if we used organ? Just like, why don't we try it out? And it ruled.
Is that the first use of an organ?
That we know of, honestly.
Yeah,
okay.
We'll take that with a grain of salt.
I'm trying. Yeah.
He hid that piano in Duel of the Fates from me. And
yeah.
No, I'll never be like certain.
Here's again. What's your guys' workflow with various episode directors to define a scene's mood? Is there a conversation, temp music you reference?
Do you want to take that one, Deana?
Usually we're talking most creative jargon ends up with the showrunner. So whether it's Dave Filoni or Brad Rao, it's usually with them because they're the ones like really steering everything. Mm-hmm. They've been communicating with like all sides of the production, which is like whether like with the animators, they know what the director was going for. They were there for the voice acting sessions. They are so immersed in the entire show and so well versed in what the direction of it is, and they have consistently the best insights. So like especially with the animated stuff, it's very rarely interacting with the directors, because all of them are kind of on for a second or on for maybe like a handful of episodes, and then they won't be present for the next one. So
we really have no idea how production works, really. Like what that pipeline is. Right. I'm like, I don't know. We end up in a meeting with Brad, and he talks about what Dave was talking about,
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and what his ideas and Athena's and stuff. But
yeah. Okay. Well, was the track Hera Soars inspired by The Rocketeer?
Yep.
It was.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. That's a great, because I love that movie growing up.
I don't think
we were writing. I think that was being written. Well, no, I don't know. I shouldn't speak to anything about it because I don't know.
Okay.
That's getting way back there past I can barely remember what I ate yesterday.
Yeah. So. Most unique music you've made for any of the series? It's kind of a broad question, but.
Most unique music.
Okay. Well,
You go first, Deana, or you want me to go first? I don't know.
I mean, it's interesting. Like the first thing that comes to mind, and I've just been thinking about it a lot lately. But I don't think it's actually that unique because I feel like John Williams plays with the choir in very interesting ways. So it's not necessarily unique, but it was a very unique approach that we took with Barriss and in particular with the ending of Barriss's arc in Tales of the Empire. um, just because like the way that we wrote it is usually like we're either writing into our program or we're writing like on sheet music or what have you. Um, and for that, the way that we structured each choral part was singing the part in ourselves and like layering it and then sending it to the orchestrator and having him get it ready for the choir to perform. So that was really interesting, and I'm really proud of the way that one turned out.
Yeah, no, that's one of my favorites. I love that one. Recently I used the accordion for the burial scene with Ventress,
Oh yeah.
and I'm not sure if the cue is necessarily that unique, but it was certainly a unique experience for making it. Just because the instrument, I felt very connected to the scene with the way that the instrument breathes, and so that's the pad that's under there, under the very emotive kind of strings.
Yeah. That whole scene of the burial scene made me want just Dark Disciple, all of it, and see what you guys would work with that. I feel like that's one of the more just dramatic Clone Wars stories in general.
Mhm.
Could be cool.
But it was great to see my whole. I mean, if they made a whole new model for Quinlan, my whole thing is they
Where do you go?
they wouldn't do that for nothing. So, but let's see. Might not be able to, but will Shin get her own theme motif for next season?
I
Knows?
have no idea.
Okay.
Probably,
Have you guys
but
started to work on that at all? Or you? No.
no, we've been spitballing a little bit,
Yeah.
getting some emails back and forth about like tonal references and just like kind of like cultural references to be foundational to like thinking about the sound. So
Yeah.
concepts of a plan.
Concept. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that just started production. What, like a month ago?
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
There's been crazy pre-production on it. It's very interesting. But yeah, I believe they just started shooting about a month ago.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm. It's gonna be wild that it'll have been 3 years by the time that.
You're telling us.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Doesn't feel real.
Get back
It's
into the
crazy.
rhythm of it again.
Yeah. Oh, that's another. Was a question of my own, but Anakin, coming up in Ahsoka, was that pretty like? What was your guys' reaction? Like, oh shit! Like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it's just okay.
yeah.
Oh shit. We hit a little bit of Anakin's theme. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when he shows up. So that was just like
It
gives
was
me
it was
chills.
very emotional. It was just like it was feeling like a fan again, where it was just like, oh my God, he's here. And just
Mm-hmm.
seeing them interact, not only like in like adult interactions, but like the resetting it and having like the live action from animation. Just it's just really cool to see it like come to life in such a different way. Um, and to see Hayden back,
Yeah.
like especially, I think that helped kind of establish like the internet's love for
Mm.
Hayden, and that
Yeah.
like we've been kind of missing him, and we didn't really realize how much we've been missing him. I mean, I guess I'm speaking for myself, but I feel like I saw a lot of this a similar sentiment.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I got to meet him.
Oh wow.
Um, it was like Kevin was speaking at a panel. Um, and like in Community when like Donald Glover like meets his idol and cannot
Oh,
even speak.
isn't it LeVar Burton?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
he
Yeah,
meets
that's right.
LeVar Burton. Yes, I love that episode. Yes.
That's a little bit. I don't get super Star Trek too often, but like I have this hair because of this man.
Yep.
I started doing this in high school
Really?
and I never stopped.
That's incredible. I love that. Hey, and you're rocking it really well.
Oh, they do.
So yes, along with the Anakin, like, how are you guys approaching writing for Anakin post Return of the Jedi? And then they add the reharmonization of the Vader theme at the end of season 1 was magical.
So, I mean, that's one of those things that was like very much kind of playing the story and playing the the place where the characters were at, like especially in 5 when he first shows up and it's very dreamy and very ethereal. We wanted to steer into that really hard. I know we were looking a lot at of a lot of like Akira, interestingly. Like a
Hmm.
lot of music from Akira kind of had a impact on our approach. And yeah, it was honestly like kind of a really nice breath to take to go in a different direction for that moment. And then yeah, trying to that was a very the ending of season 1 was a very particular um moment for us and Dave to like kind of like find the sweet spot, find where we wanted to land. Like, how did we want to be playing it? Did we want to be playing it like full and like a big sweeping moment, or did we want to kind of like come down and like play that like intimacy of their connection?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, I guess one more we haven't talked about a whole lot was last season of Bad Batch.
Oh,
But so we'll end with this. But what, man, that ending of the show, was that pretty like, like first like handling that is like emotionally like, oh, this is it. Like did it feel pretty like that, like a heavy responsibility to kind of end the show on a high note?
I get. I legitimately, I'm not exaggerating. The last like 2 times I've like gone back to that sequence, I have cried.
Mm.
I'm like, I just get it. Just makes me really, really emotional. Yeah, I don't even know what I was looking. I was like, oh wait, what did I do? I was having to reference it for something, and I just ended up watching the whole like last thing again and being like, I miss those people.
Yeah,
Um, but then the other time was in front of a bunch of people at like a talk, and I was like,
that Comic-Con.
it was, yeah, it was a Comic Con. I was like, I just can't hold it together. I don't know. I miss my good boys,
Yeah.
the daughter.
Yeah.
I know. I had to I agonized over that moment where they get back to Pabu and are sitting at the tree.
Mm.
Um, I don't know that there's a lot of pieces of music I've spent on as long.
Mm.
Uh, I I myself, even before like sending it to Sean or like having Kevin listen to it, like I just kept cycling different ideas. I was like, I completed it and I was like, this isn't right. I threw it out. And I did it again. I was like, not right. I threw it out again. Just like
I
but
remember
by
you
myself, I
seeing a
just
bunch.
what's that?
I remember seeing a bunch even after you showed us. You were still tinkering with it a lot.
Yeah, I could probably go back to that moment and attempt it again and still not feel satisfied just because yeah, I love that show. I love those characters and it felt really important to just play that moment as best as I could. And uh God, yeah, it was really emotional to to complete it. And yeah, we have like a really interesting emotional connection to that show.
Yeah, because I remember, Sean, wasn't you were writing the Omega theme like right when your kid was born?
Yeah,
Right.
she was in my lap as I was like plinking around on my keyboard,
Yeah.
and like COVID was in full swing, and things were bad, just in
Yeah.
general. And I had this little ray of hope right in my
Mm.
lap, and I was like, oh wait,
Classic
God,
Star Wars.
Yeah.
yeah, it came out very effortlessly. It was cool.
Yeah. That show, I feel like we haven't gotten many shows that have ended so clearly. Like, it's like, beginning, middle, and end. Like, so bookended so well. Because with the Clone Wars, when it first ended, it was like, oh, it didn't.
Now to the movies.
Yeah,
Now go
it was
watch.
just,
Right. You know, it's
yeah.
like
And then with Rebels, it's still kind of, it ends with that anticipation of like, oh, there's something's gonna happen. And this one, obviously, there's still that, like, you kind of, it's connected pretty closely, but it still just feels like all of those characters got such a good that even if I would love to see Omega show up again, but even if they didn't, I would be very content.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
yeah, totally. Just the fact that they got is it technically, did they get more years of peace than they got of war in the end? I guess I haven't mathed it out. It feels like they got a long period of time where they got to live full lives and be just who they are.
Yeah, 100%.
It's nice. It's really nice.
Well, thank you guys for joining again. It's been a blast to talk. Love to do it again.
Thanks for having us.
With Kevin here.
We'll wrangle him one day.
Yeah,
I did my best.
I appreciate it. Well, I would love to, because I haven't met him before, so it would be.
Oh, really?
No, I haven't. So it would be.
We'll get it.
Yeah, it would be great to meet him. But we'll have that happen again. I'm planning on doing this. Some more. But do you any projects that you guys would like to plug here? That you're upcoming?
Yeah, I mean, we just finished airing Darkwind season 3, and we love the way that turned out. It's a beautiful show to work on. Very different approach to it, but you can probably hear a lot of the ways that working on that has influenced our work on Star Wars. Peacemaker season 2 comes out August 21st, not 23rd.
Okay.
This year. And it is the funniest fucking thing on the planet. What else? Is there other things?
An instrument for, obviously for the Star Wars fans, an instrument that that we got for Dark Winds and like learned to play for Dark Winds is going to feature very prominently in Maul Shadow Lord.
Oh,
so that'll be cool.
Awesome, that's great. Oh, and this quick aside, this is personal, but last time we talked, this was something I was really interested in. With the Rebels soundtracks hadn't been released, and that has since happened. Because I remember.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Sean, you were telling that they had been lost, or so. I'm just curious, whether the files had been corrupted or something.
For some cues, not the entire.
Not the entire. Oh, okay. Because I remember, but I was just curious, like, how did that end up coming about that it came out?
I think it was a big push from Dave.
Oh, okay.
Lonnie was just like, I want this to come out.
Okay.
I love music and it should be out, and then he got them to do it, which is really sweet.
Great. I would meant to ask that much here. I was really curious, but it's been a great having them. Finally, just beautiful work. But all right, guys.
I remember what happened. It was my computer had gotten accidentally wiped. And so I lost all of my archived sessions. But the actual music still existed on our archive.
Oh, okay.
And so then I think with the synergy with like people are getting back into Rebels with like Ahsoka coming out, that like got a lot of momentum behind that.
Okay. Well, good to know. Yeah, it's been good. It's been good to have them. But well, thank you guys again so much. We'll talk soon. But I'm glad the circumstances of this, or last time I talked with you, I had just finished a day of chemo. So.
But
yeah.
So yeah.
Glad you're doing better.
Yeah, got the long locks since then. So it's been a journey. But thanks, you guys have been very supportive through all that. So thank you all. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. Yeah, guys, have a good one.
See you soon.
Yeah, happy birthday. Bye.